If you aren't going to talk about your artwork, why should anyone else? This sounds kind of harsh, right? It's something that an art teacher told me when I was about 17 years old or so. Well, not me specifically. I was actually in art critique class and he said it to the group when we all presented our paintings and started to talk about them together. Inevitably, we're always asked this question, right? What does it mean? And when one student didn't want to answer that question and they just kind of shrugged, my art teacher told us a story. He said when he was in school for art, he said something very similar. His art teacher, so art teacherception, but this art teacher had presented his work and his teacher asked him what it meant, and my art teacher at the time said something like, I don't really know what it means. I just kind of made it. Why don't you guys talk about it? And that's when his professor told him that. If you aren't going to talk about your work, why should anyone else? Yikes. Would not want to be in that room. But as I get older and as I reflect on this advice, it really is true, isn't it? Shouldn't we be our own biggest fan? Shouldn't we dive deeper into ourselves and ask ourselves, what is my why? Why do I do what I do? You see, artists are super interesting to people because of this unique ability to see the world through a unique lens, through a unique perception, and translate that for other people, to see that in an image. Isn't that so unique? Isn't that so cool? And what a disservice it would be to not fully flesh out this idea. And so this whole concept is about getting good at talking about your artwork and the importance of talking about your artwork. But it is tricky, isn't it? As an artist, and if you're an artist too listening, I'm sure that you know, sometimes we create artwork for very mysterious reasons. We don't quite know what it means when we're making artwork ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we just make something spontaneously, and then we take a step back and we're like, what did I just do here, right? So how exactly do you discover your why? Let's talk about it. I feel like this is such a tricky topic and I could honestly talk about it for years because there's so much to say on it. But for now, I just wanted to introduce you to the concept by telling you my story about how I discovered my why behind my artwork. But before we get into that, hello out there in the big wide world. My name is Jen Carmiel. I am an artist and illustrator based in the Columbia, South Carolina area. I make artwork that romanticizes the small joys in life. I would like to think of my artwork as a window into the desire, the dream life that you want to have, so that when you wake up and you look at the wall, you see the version of yourself that you want to become, that you aspire towards, that you are becoming right here, right in this very moment. Although, if you want to know the best way to support me, it's this super cool thing called the Small Joys Club. If you join the Small Joys Club, I send you a postcard print in the mail every month that helps describe a small joy that I discovered this month, so that you can also participate in this mission to discover and spread the small joys of the world. I also have a free newsletter, which is another huge way to support me, and it is completely free. So, what is your why? When I'm asked why I create artwork, one particular memory comes to mind. I was at an art market at Refine Night Market in Columbia, South Carolina. I stood at my booth with all my artwork while an older gentleman stood at arm's length away from my booth, appearing to be hesitant about approaching. "I don't have any money at all," he said. "My wallet is spitting dust. I'm sure I won't be of any help to you." "That's no problem at all. Feel free to look, no pressure. I'm just here for vibes," is what I said in response. The older gentleman perused my booth for a while I read my book at the edge of the table. After a moment, I noticed the energy shift, and he stopped, staring at an affirmations postcard print available on my table. After staring at it for a moment, he said in a quiet voice, "I'll take this one, please." I packaged up the postcard, and he handed me a $5 bill. While I handed it to him, he gave me a solemn look and told me a story about how he had just been diagnosed with a serious illness that he was having a really hard time coming to terms with. He was having a hard time adjusting and processing this new information, this new way of life that he had to live. He said that he wanted the postcard to put on his wall, to look at in the morning, to remind himself, it goes on. The print that he collected was of the signature painting from my Breathing series. On one side of the print was a painting of a woman lying on her back, just resting, just breathing. And on the other side was a quote, "If I've learned anything about life, it's that life goes on." And that moment where I realized artwork is more than an image. Artwork is a translation of life. Artwork is a connection between people. And no matter what kind of artwork you make, you are answering the need for connection. When I was a kid making artwork, a lot of times I felt like my artwork served as a bridge between me and the pieces of myself that I wasn't ready to verbalize just yet. Either repressed memories, repressed emotions, or just pieces of myself that I was still pondering and thinking about. Sometimes the artwork I made no sense at the time. And then later, when I see all of this artwork lined up and see it together, I take a step back and I'm like, whoa, what did I just make here? For example, when I was in college, I created a series of paintings called Dissociation. It was a period of my life where I was really struggling with my identity, struggling with how I related to other people. What was I saying? What was I doing here? You know, all that kinds of early adolescence angst, so to say. And after I created all this artwork, I took a step back and I said, why do these figures not have faces? Why are the colors so muted? When you put them up next to each other, what are they saying? And you can kind of read into this artwork and kind of tell yourself a story. You can kind of rewind the tape, so to say, and start to answer questions for yourself about how this artwork fits into your life and how it describes it, how it's the captions on the screen of your life. As contemporary artists, some of the most important meat of your artwork is going to be the identity piece. Why are you making what you're making? That's your why, right? But your why rests not only in the artwork itself, not only in the images you create, but in your personhood. Why did you start to make this? You can start to ask yourself those questions. For example, in college, I created those figure paintings, and now I paint coffee and flower vases. Why the change? Well, think about your life, right? When my identity shifted away from someone who is people-pleasing, dedicated to presenting well to others, and shifted into someone who's more interested in finding simple joy, finding simple contentment, my lens shifted. The way that I see the world shifted. So let's talk about it, right? Writing about your artwork and writing a lot, so important. And even if you create a lot of different kinds of artwork, for instance, I create watercolors, I create oil paintings, I do illustrations, ink and line drawings, I do video art sometimes, photography, I do so many different kinds of artwork, and a lot of times I felt like that held me back, like it made me a lesser artist because I was quote unquote unfocused. But really, your core self, that core piece of you that drives you to become creative, that is one source. And so even though you create a lot of different kinds of artwork, consider that it's coming from the same source and consider that there is a common thread. The more that you create, the more that you observe your creations and the more that you're able to talk about them and write about them, even if it doesn't make sense to you in the beginning, it will start to add up. I'm a huge believer in that artwork is meant to be shared. It's not meant to exist in a vacuum. Some artists tuck themselves into a corner and just kind of make things all on their own. And I don't believe that's the natural place for art to exist. We create it because it wants to be seen, right? We want others to see it. Even if we feel like we need to deny that part of ourselves, oh, I don't want to be seen. There's something in you, Miss Artist Self, that craves to be seen. And so when you share your artwork with other people, you are able to see more clearly What is translating? What is speaking? What is the most important part of that piece that is really resonating with other people who look at it? So anyway, that's the video for today. If you like videos like this, I think I'm going to call this series like Diary of a Cautious Artist or Diary of an Aspiring Artist. I don't know yet, but just a stream of consciousness, thoughts, and memories of that life of an artist. Definitely let me know in the comments if this type of video interests you, and then I can make more of them if you so choose to. But either way, spending any amount of time here on this channel with me is a gift. I really do consider it a gift, and for that, this humble artist says thank you.